Hey there, Michael Douglas, Superintendent of Decatur City Schools. I want to get some information out to our parents before Thanksgiving. Um, First, we'll talk about the shutdown this Thursday and Friday. Obviously, I get emails weekly, why aren't you shutting down? Or, hey, please don't shut down. I appreciate the emails, but I did want to get out, just some information so that you can understand how those occur. We look at the numbers. We look at them daily. We look at them hourly. This week, we looked at them constantly because we did see some things that were alarming. Basically, the reason for the shutdown is we went from 446 student quarantines to 722. About 200 of those happened all on Wednesday. And then we went from 25 student positives to 32 student positives. So when you have that kind of spike, it just dictated, hey, let's go ahead and shut down. Of that 700 quarantine, probably 500 came from the secondary schools. So I got 12 elementary schools, but 500 of them came at 5 schools. So that's why secondary was immediately. Elementary, we were probably fine, but we didn't want to take the chance that what was occurring at our secondary schools was going to trickle down to elementary. And so that's why we went ahead and made the decision Thursday, Friday for secondary, and then Friday for elementary, give us time to really clean the building. But I did want you to know that we are constantly looking at the numbers. Never think that we're not looking and analyzing and trying to make the best decisions possible. I do want to say, a lot of times you guys have the right. If you don't think I'm moving in the direction that you would move, you have the right to move your child to virtual without waiting on me. Yeah, you also have the right, if it's just a day or two, there's something called parent withheld. You just need to call your principal and say, hey, I have a real concern, next 1 or 2 days till the numbers come down, I'll feel safer without making a full shift. So, I just want to put those options are out there. But now, grades are still grades and you're still responsible for the work. But, you don't have to wait on me. Other one, as we're looking at it, I did want you to make sure that, I got this information out there. We're seeing very little evidence that the spread of the virus is occurring at school. Now, this week we had a little bit of concern, and that's why we shut down. But the majority of our cases come from outside of school, and really, when you think about it, school is 6 to 8 hours where I know they've got a mask on. And then when they get off the bus or as soon as they walk out the door, that's when the masks are coming off. So just realize this, we're not seeing evidence that, the virus is spreading at school. And one of the things I base that on is very few of our quarantine students that we've quarantined actually come down with the virus. So I know it's frustrating for a parent when you get quarantined, but our objective is we're going to follow the guidelines, and the object is not to minimize positives, it's to get 0 positives. And so, but I did want everybody to know, that's a large quarantine number, but we've seen very little evidence that, sitting next to somebody with a mask on, if they have the mask on too, that the virus is transmitted. Most of our transmission occurs outside of school. So I did want to kind of get that out there. Our nurses, we leave them alone. They do a good job of the contact tracing. Sometimes it takes longer than you would wish, and you're waiting on the phone call. Well, you've heard about a positive. We do that as fast as we can, and our nurses, without influence from administration, do the very best job to ensure that any kid that's quarantined needs to be quarantined. And so I just want to get that out there. I appreciate what our nurses have done, but also get that information out to you. Last thing I want to address with the shutdowns and COVID is A lot of rumors out there, other districts shutting down till Christmas, some colleges starting back January 14th. At this time, we do not plan to have or plan a lengthy shutdown. That could change, but we really prefer to look at the data, look at it by school, look at it by a classroom, and then, of course, look at it from a district perspective. And, if we needed to shut down for a day or two, backed up to a break, or a day or two, backed up to a weekend, that's what we'll do. If we don't think that's successful, that's when we might look at maybe a week, but never would we take just a blanket 3 week, 4 week, we're shutting down for a month at this time. And part of the reason is what I said earlier. We do not feel like we are, um, you know, an active spreader, right now. Well, some of you are asking, well, if that's the case, then why shut down at all? Well, when you get so many kids quarantined, you got 722 quarantined, and you've got a bunch of kids doing virtual, and you've got students doing blended virtual. Instructionally, it just becomes impossible to service all of those children effectively. And it's much easier for the teacher just to shift to virtual, and everybody gets virtual instruction. So at the end of the day, high quarantine numbers do dictate a shutdown, but that 722 is less concerning for me than we had 7 people get positives. Like I said, the objective is not to get positive. So going up 7 in a week, that's real concerning. So that's why we shut down. So that's pretty much it for COVID. I do briefly want to kind of hit on some instructional things. Since the start of this, we feel like traditional learning has gone really well. The face-to-face has probably gone better than any year since I've been here. The virtual has continually gotten better. I've seen a lot of really, really good things in the virtual realm. Blended has been the area that we really don't like. A lot of things that are occurring blended. Now, it's not across the board. And it mainly has to do with student performance. And so ultimately, our job is to educate children. And we've got a lot of children in that blended that aren't doing well. So we are going to make some changes to blended. We told you there would be changes. These will start second semester. Every time you shift kids in and out of a classroom, sometimes it requires teacher changes. I wish I could tell you you're going to have the same teacher throughout the year, but every time, this is a unique year, and in order to properly staff every area, sometimes we have to make teacher changes. So that's one change that could occur. The changes to blended will probably be specific to not only level. Elementary is different, and let me touch on elementary. If you chose blended virtual and you've been virtual the whole year, you really wanted virtual. And I have, a virtual teacher that's elementary certified that can teach every subject. That conversation with your administration might be, okay, why don't we look at a virtual setting? And that way we're not asking the classroom teacher to, service the classroom kids and then also service you. It kind of makes it easier to share the workload at our elementary schools. Obviously, you can have specific conversations with administration about electives, stuff like that. But I would anticipate, phone calls. We're pretty much leaving it up to the school to make it work for them. At middle and high school, if you're blended virtual and you've been virtual the whole year, you probably did so because you wanted a specific teacher. Obviously, an upper level teacher, it's a whole lot easier to have a teacher, one of our teachers, rather than an online instructor that may not be an employee of the district. So in terms of blended instruction at the secondary level, we're going to leave that up to the administration, but it basically has to do with you. If your child's been blended virtual, receiving instruction virtually from day one, and you've done everything you're supposed to do, you log into meetings, you're making good grades, you're communicating with the teacher, your second semester shouldn't change. Why would we change something that's working for the student? But we have a large number that they're not logging on and they're making F's, and we're having conversations, and parents are like, well, I thought he was doing his work. We just can't allow your child to fail because of blended or communication. So you may get a phone call that says, hey, blended's no longer an option for you, it's not working, your kid's failing. Do you want to go virtual, or do you want to come back to the classroom? Ultimately, we let the child's performance and how well they're getting their education dictate that. So, but it's kind of school specific. But I did want to get out there. Blended isn't totally going away, but it is largely dependent on how successful it's been for you and your family. And the last little bit, quarantining and blended. For those that remain in blended, and for those that unfortunately get quarantined, we're going to have guidelines that you're really going to need to follow, because we're seeing consistently when students are quarantined, their grades are dropping. We need you, if you're quarantined, you need to log in. You need to be present for courses. You don't need to be absent. You don't need to be truant, and you need to keep your grades up. So your teachers will be putting out guidelines for how to take tests, what's the expectation for logging in, and you really need to follow those so that we can service you in the best way possible. Those are some things. We called it phase 4. We told you to be changes. Those will kind of be coming out from your school, probably one-on-one conversation with parents about, hey, hey, it's working well for your child. Here are the expectations. Or, hey, it's not working well. You're going to need to choose. We're going to change formats, because at the end of the day, we've got to get the failures down. We've had a lot of failures, and that's true statewide. But ultimately, it's how do we manage this as best we can. And unfortunately, that is going to require us to make changes that are in the best interest of our students. But look for that communication to come from the schools. But that's just a little bit of an instruction. Last little bit, we'll be getting more specific information out when we come back from Thanksgiving about your intention in terms of what you would like to do the second semester. Please get that to us by the deadline, so that we can make all the shifts to staff that we need to make, so that we are ready for second semester. I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving, and enjoy the week. Thank you.